Cadillac and Lincoln are the first two names that come to mind when people think of American luxury cars from the 1950s. But not many people know that Chrysler made a car in 1955 called the Imperial that was meant to not only compete with Cadillac, but also beat it. This was more than just a car. It was a show of strength. The first step in making Imperial a separate brand. Not in Chrysler's shadow anymore, but time has buried it today. People still talk about the Cadillac Eldorado and Lincoln Continental as symbols of luxury, but the Imperial, which was even more expensive, rare, and beautiful, has quietly faded from public memory. So what happened? What caused such a high-quality machine to disappear? And why should it be remembered as more than just an old thing? Why should it be remembered as a forgotten masterpiece? Let's see. Chrysler didn't just release a new model in 1955. They said that a new luxury empire was born. Imperial is now its own brand and no longer uses the Chrysler name. It was very clear what the goal was: directly take on Cadillac, the clear leader in American luxury cars. To do that, though, they needed something that was really different. The Imperial wasn't just a fancier version of the Chrysler New Yorker. It was meant to be a limousine for the powerful. Each one was made with better craftsmanship. Costs more than the Cadillac Series 62, a move that was not common at the time. This car wasn't made to please everyone because of its fancy interior, huge size, and cutting-edge features. Cadillac was worried about how it would work. Chrysler wasn't shy about their goals. They wanted Imperial to be the car that presidents, CEOs, and Hollywood stars drove, and they wanted it to be a sign of America's status. And with the very first 1955 edition, they took the biggest risk. A car that no one has ever seen on American roads before. You can't mistake the 1955 Imperial for anything else. Virgil Exner, the famous designer who came up with Chrysler's famous forward look style, did this work. The whole car has a royal air about it. The front end is amazing, with a huge chrome egg crate grille and headlights that are mounted high and are separate from the body. A bold design that had never been seen before. But the back is what really stops the show. The upright tail fins, which were the first signs of the fin craze that would soon take off, make it look like a fighter jet is ready to take off. When you look at the car from behind, the tall tail lights give it a strange look. The formal hardtop roof, which has no frame and is smooth, adds an extra touch of class and privacy, making the car feel like a rolling lounge for the rich. The badge was even different. Not a Chrysler logo, but a golden eagle with its wings spread out. The royal crest of Imperial. The 1955 Imperial was more than just a car that took up space. It was over 226 feet long. It told it to. The 1955 Imperial was more than just a pretty face. It also got the attention of the whole auto industry because it had cutting-edge technology hidden under its sleek exterior. The car had power steering, power brakes, power windows, and power adjustable seats even in 1955. Things that a lot of high-end cars didn't offer for a long time. When most American cars still had to roll down their windows by hand and use manual brakes, this was a whole new level of comfort. The Astrodome design on the dashboard was very eye-catching. The gauges on the back were raised and lit up, making it look like they were from a spaceship. Air conditioning was optional, but when it was installed, it worked very well, making the ride smooth in any weather. The 1955 Imperial was one of the first cars to have push-button electronic gear selectors on the dash. This feature wouldn't be seen again by many car companies for decades. Every little thing was carefully made. The buttons, handles, and metal trim looked strong, elegant, and long-lasting. In short, the inside of the 1955 Imperial wasn't just a place to drive. It was a first-class lounge on wheels. And of course, a car that was the first to have luxury tech needed a heart that was just as strong. The famous Hemi 58 engine is hidden under all that fancy style. The Hemi Firepower Phi 8 engine, which had 331 cubic inches and made 250 horsepower, was underneath. A very impressive number for a full-size luxury sedan in the 1950s. This was a real Hemi engine with hemispherical combustion chambers that made combustion more efficient and gave it strong low-end torque. It had a 2-speed PowerFlight automatic transmission that could be controlled by push-button selectors on the dashboard. This made driving feel futuristic and polished. The Imperial could go from 0 to 60 mph in about 13 seconds, even though it weighed more than 5,000 pounds. Not bad for a car from that time and class. More importantly, it drove so smoothly that many people said it felt like they were floating on clouds. The front torsion bar suspension and stiff X-frame chassis made the car stable and graceful by absorbing bumps in the road. The Imperial wasn't made to be a race car. It was made to give orders quietly. You might think that only the very rich could afford a machine this powerful and well-made. But the start of this emperor's journey was with a regular dentist, which is strange. It all began at a car show in the area. The dentist, who also loved cars, found an old Imperial in a small garage. The car didn't work. The paint wasn't shiny. Over time, the inside faded. But instead of leaving, he decided to keep it and said, "Something this beautiful shouldn't go away." Later on, the car was given to its current owner, who spent more than 7 years fixing up every part of it, from the engine and chassis to the inside. All true to the original from 1955. What makes this story so memorable is not just the restoration, but the fact that a regular person brought a car back to life that was almost lost to time. But not every Imperial was as lucky as this one and was able to be saved and restored. Most of them just quietly faded away, though. And behind that is a story full of sadness. The 1955 Imperial and the Imperial line as a whole never did as well as Cadillac, even though they had a bold design, cutting-edge technology, and strong performance. So, what happened? The first reason has to do with branding. Most people still thought of the Imperial as a fancier Chrysler, even though it was technically a separate company. Cadillac, on the other hand, had its own dealerships, showrooms, and a brand that was completely different from the others. Imperial didn't have that unique look, and it was often sold with regular Chryslers, which made it less appealing as a luxury brand. Then there was bad marketing. Chrysler didn't spend enough money to make Imperial look like a real high-end brand. Unlike Cadillac and Lincoln, which did well because of their image and celebrity endorsements, there were no big ad campaigns, Hollywood stars, or politicians driving Imperials. Finally, the market was cautious. At that time, rich Americans cared more about brand prestige than new ideas. They bought Cadillacs, not because they were the best cars, but because they showed off their wealth. The Imperial, despite all its strengths, slowly faded from view, becoming a nameless gem lost among America's famous cars. But thankfully, gems like the 1955 Imperial that have been forgotten haven't completely disappeared. In the last few decades, collectors of vintage cars have started to realize how special this line is in terms of both design and engineering. People who love cars no longer compare the Imperial to the Cadillac. People think of it as a unique symbol of Chrysler's most creative time in the mid-1950s. People who have driven an Imperial often talk about how smooth it is, how well it is built, and how deep and resonant its Hemi engine sounds. People think that the few surviving Imperials, especially the 1955 model, are very valuable. A fully restored example can sell for $50,000 to more than $100,000, depending on how original it is and how well it is detailed. Imperials are showing up more often at events like Pebble Beach or Amelia Island Concours. Younger people who want to learn about the history of these once-forgotten mares are really impressed. In places where people love cars for their stories, and not just the badge up front. The Imperial is slowly taking back its place. An expensive icon that was once ignored is now alive again, thanks to sincere appreciation. That revival isn't just good for collectors. It reminds us that real value will always have a chance to shine again, even if we forget about it. The 1955 Imperial was never a popular car or a well-known commercial vehicle. That's what makes it so special. It shows that the American car industry used to be willing to dream big, try new things, and put quality above all else. A car made with love, not for everyone, but for people who wanted to be different. You would understand if you had ever seen an Imperial in person. It doesn't want to be noticed, it naturally draws attention. It's your turn now. Before watching this video, did you know about the Imperial? Which would you rather have? A Cadillac, a Lincoln, or an Imperial? Which one would you choose? Please leave a comment and tell us what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss any more great stories about old cars.